eventually you get absorbed in and you are Sonic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to No Repeat, a podcast where we pick 3 songs every week with no repeats and no do-overs to create a perfect playlist for every occasion life throws at you. Joining me are my co-hosts, my traveling companions, my workout buddies, Tyler Reed.
Ching. Whoop, 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 whoop. Lunk alert.
And Sean Evans.
Oh, did you set off the wonk alarm?
Yeah, I did it.
Gotta make sure you don't make too loud of a sound in Planet Fitness pro tip.
Turns
I guess
out
that'll
you
be my
also
intro
drop a
there.
pencil.
Pro tip from Planet Fitness: don't drop weights.
Yeah.
The alarm will go off. People will see you.
It happened in my gym this week. I was on the elliptical and somebody set off the lunk alarm. And it was very embarrassing for them, but very interesting for me. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the lunk alert alarm. Tyler, what are we here to talk about?
This week, we're challenged to find the perfect song for power walking. Power walking! Submitted by Andrew Wood. He doesn't want anyone to find him, but I gotta shout him out. Don't find him on the socials. But what a great pal. Makes a mean pumpkin loaf. And if you have a great pumpkin loaf, send me the recipe, and you can always DM us, add us, however you want to do it on the socials, at NoRepeatPod on Instagram or Twitter, or you can always send us an email with the recipe for a pumpkin loaf and some suggestions for a challenge at NoRepeatPod@gmail.com. Thanks so much.
All right, so let's do some definitions here. According to Wikipedia, power walking or speed walking is the act of walking with a speed at the upper end of the natural range for the walking gait, typically between 7 to 9 kilometers per hour or 4.5 to 5.5 miles per hour. To qualify as power walking, as opposed to jogging or running, at least one foot must be in contact with the ground at all times. This is similar to the definition of race walking, which is an Olympic sport. In race walking, it's a little more complicated in terms of how much foot needs to be on the ground. Essentially, one foot must appear to be in contact with the ground at all times. It's based on when your heel touches the ground versus the end of the big toe of the other foot. It's very technical. I looked this up one time because I was in a bar bet conversation about the nature of race walking during the Olympics. So all of this to say, when we talk about power walking, we usually joke about it and, say like, oh, old people power walk at the mall and all of these things. But when I was thinking about power walking this week, I was thinking about usually when I'm power walking, it's because I'm either late or I've got somewhere to be. And this is in line with Merlin Mann's common saying, move fast and get out of the way. And that's how I feel when I'm power walking. Particularly if I'm in a crowded setting like an airport or public transit. I need to move fast, get out of the way. Hashtag Supertrain, keep it moving, let's go. And so for me, I was looking for that.
Yeah, it's the part where, you're already late for class and you got Starbucks anyway, and but you have to do it for yourself, or you have to power walk, because you don't want to be 10 minutes late, you want to be 8 minutes late, and that makes a difference inside your heart, oldly.
Oh, that's totally true.
So
I also had a power walking, speed walking research session during the Olympics this last year as well, when I was looking up the technique, and it's very hippie. It's very, not like hippie like tie-dye and stuff, like hippie, like you have to there's a very form where you have to thrust your hip out in front of another and get you're almost like walking on a line, kind of.
Your hips don't lie.
Yeah, well, they can't, honestly. If not, you get
DQ
sanctioned by the speed walking board. But
so for me, obviously, as a common traveler, the vast majority of my power walking takes place in airports. My thing with movement within an airport is you should be moving. if you are in any kind of thoroughfare. If you are not, you need to be relatively stationary. If there are seats, you sit. Like, the airport is designed for certain things. And I say that because the two things I hate most in the airport are people who walk slow in large groups and people standing in the gate area and making a huge line that goes out into the walkway when their flight hasn't even begun boarding yet. Because
that's the key, though. I always thought that was like a pro tip. Like,
no.
If you really want to see if you want the flight attendant to know that you are about to be a problem, as soon as gate 1 opens and you know your economy, you're right there. You're not like in line. You're like immediately next to the first post. Like, those are the people that I'm like, not next to me. Please, God, not next to me.
Right, exactly. But again, this is back to Merlin's point. Move fast, get out of the way. When you are lining up like that, first of all, maybe you'll get some bin space that you might not have otherwise gotten. But you're still just going to get into that tin can and sit down in the same seat you were going to in the first place unless you're flying Southwest like an animal. So just sit down or go stand by the window. Look at the planes go by. Don't block the hallway. This is also true in grocery stores. If you are at the checkout line and the line is building back to the point where it's going to like go into the walkway behind all the registers, leave some space. Make the line go in the aisle. Don't be a problem. Because then there's me who like has something on the stove at home and I forgot one ingredient and I'm power walking through Kroger trying to find the cloves because they're the one thing I need for the recipe I have already started. And you're just in the way. So for me, power walking is a very like assertive action that often involves my general distrust of my common man in public space.
We should also discuss at some point in time your general distrust of Southwest Airlines. You really just Yahtzeed them and then you just moved right on. Like, you called their customers animals. That's
it. Just
Taylor has some very problematic views about a lot of people.
Like, I'm just saying, all air travel is kind of like herding cattle, but it feels especially degrading when you go to fly on a like big Southwest plane and they line you up in those little boarding lanes. It's like putting cattle in the chute, getting ready to go into the slaughter, and you just like, line 1, go, and then they all like run onto the plane and try and get as much bin space as they can before line 2 comes on, and it's a free-for-all. Anybody sits where they want, and I'm like,
oh, okay. I've never flown Southwest.
Oh yeah, there's no assigned seating on Southwest, so they give you a group A, B, C, or D, and then you line up in your group, and then they release you by group. And so if you're at the front of the line of Group A, you get whatever seat you want, and if you're in the back of the line of Group D, you're screwed. And it's purely just when you get there.
Well, there's only 2 answers for that. It's either by the emergency exit or first row.
Right. But that's what I mean. It just feels like, it truly feels like herding animals. But anyway, what about you guys? Is a power walking an aggressive stature for you?
I don't feel the need to power walk in a lot of places. If it's an emergency, I will run, which is dangerous because I've done it in dress shoes a couple times.
Ooh, that is dangerous.
It's like running on ice. It's like not nice at all. But usually my power walking happens either after I've been stuck in traffic for an hour and a half, or after I've been on a long car ride, or when I get off a plane. There's something about the vibrations of a plane that just make my insides want to come out. Like, as soon as I don't know, like I could urinate like my whole body and get on like a little like puddle jumper flight from like DC to Baltimore, and on the other side of that like landing, I will need to get off and have to pee so bad. And like I have almost shoved people out of the way to get into that. Or I've stood at the bottom of my elevator at my building, and I have like been yelling at people as they get on and off the elevator because I'm just like, really? It was necessary for you to go to the 3rd floor and then to the 2nd floor and get off? I heard you do it. You couldn't take the stairs. I live on the 8th floor and I need to pee. I need this priority right now. I need this.
I'm glad we're both in that same space.
And so, like, I'm not frequently on a plane.
Tyler Reed famously never been on a plane.
So I don't have that point of... Yeah. Right. Solving that. 2022, we're going on a plane. All right.
2021, 1 honest kiss. 2022, 1 round trip
22.
flight.
Oh, God, I got 1 month left. Oh, no! I'm running out of time! Anyway. So I actually am kind of a giant turd about like walking, because like I will power walk basically if I'm by myself, no matter what's going on, just because I'm just trying to get wherever I'm trying to go as quickly as possible. So I am like not running, because I'm not weird, I just walk vigorously.
It's true, I've seen it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's definitely like a part in this past year, like when it was definitely like warmer out, where I would literally just power walk. Like I walked to like a baseball field and then just walked around like the diamond, like just over and over again, just to kind of get my steps in, just to get out of the house because it was nice out. So like I don't really like running very much. I don't know why. I think you both of you are kind of runners or have been runners at one point, and for some reason it's never really like been something that I've like almost been like afraid of it.
You are in the majority. If that helps, you're in the majority.
Sure.
Yeah.
But power walking, Tyler says, yes, please.
Yes, please. Unfortunately, I sprained my ankle in September and somehow like ended up hurting it again in October. So I've been like just doing the elliptical the last couple of weeks. So like I feel like it's kind of like power walking. I almost kind of like that more than the treadmill now because it feels like I'm more forceful. Like I feel like my muscles are like, yes, exhilaration. Where I feel like treadmilling is just like you just get tired. You're like, oh God, I'm tired of doing this.
See, folks, power walking isn't just tracksuits and tiny weights. Sometimes it's an exhilarating exercise or a way to get to the bathroom when you desperately need it.
Yeah, but I mean, I also like sometimes walk dogs. And so that's also fun to power walk. I think it's fun to power walk a dog.
That's true.
Also, True Love's First Kiss. Tyler is a destinations person and not a journeys person. Just want to put that out there. You still got time.
Well, should we get into some songs?
Yeah, well, we've been going on this for 15 minutes. I don't understand why we need to stop now.
We can talk about ideal power walking shoes, talk about aerodynamic outfits. We could do the whole bit, but I think we need to talk about music.
We've explored so much.
We could just keep going.
Okay, so this week I chose Good Shepherd by Woven Hand. Okay, I think you guys are pretty familiar with me, with my history with Woven Hand. I've talked about them. I probably have a song by them on the playlist.
At least one,
now.
for sure.
Maybe.
There's one on there, yeah.
But they're like, they're kind of like a folk rocks. They're definitely more rock and folk inspired band. This is probably my favorite track off of Refractory, which is the album. And the reason that I picked it for like challenge walking is because it comes up every once in a while on like one of my playlists or when I'm out riding my bike or running. I'm not going to say running. I'm going to say like jogging. and it really gets me in the movement feeling. Like, because it starts out with a up-tempo guitar line. It has lots of reverb on it. You get like a bunch of nice percussion-y sounds. It has a very memorable guitar riff that's not that complicated. Like, it's not like it's not, I wouldn't really call it like metal or anything like that. It's very just rock and roll. And I think I was trying to think of the word for it today, but I want to say, like, it has a very tribal music sound to it, like in a traditional sense. Like, when you listen to or when you hear like Native American music, traditional music, or traditional African music, and it has that like drum beat, usually on the, like, whatever the deepest drum is or something. There's something that's always kind of clicking and going on the whole time, and kind of sets the tone for are if that's a part of it. This has that. That's one thing that I like about Woven Hand, is I think this band and the singer are pretty good at like getting these elements, getting these like primal elements, and really kind of like making a complex music that is also very simple and graspable. And in this case, it's a very up-tempo one that is super good for power walking or running or anything like that. So that's kind of why I went for this, because I was like, if I was going to power walk, I would want to do it in the woods, and I would probably want to, I don't know, I'd be in the zone. This would be like one of my in the zone songs. So yeah.
Oh yeah, this is way deep in the zone. This is like walking quickly away from an explosion music. It's just big and loud and powerful, and it's got a nice, like you said, heavy percussion sound with just like quarter notes on every single beat. Like, every step is a drum kick. And I think that really helps it in the power walking sense, because you're never going to lose the beat. You don't want to have something where you're like not sure what your tempo is supposed to be. This is solidly below a running pace, but above a standard walking pace. Like, you are moving. And I think that is a really great hallmark of a power walking song. I also really enjoy the like guitar solo outro on this track. I almost want like a longer solo-y solo on it. Like, if I was gonna, I think it's good the way it is, but if I was gonna like change anything, I would probably cut one chorus and put in a guitar solo, because I just love this guitar tone and I want to hear so much more of it.
You know, I would say that this song almost makes me feel like I would be both toes or both feet would be lifted up. I would be in full run. I don't know. I feel like if this song came on, I would be running a little bit. I don't know. And it's such a fine line, right? Because I think it's so clear that I think it definitely hits the part where like the BPM is just right to like get like a good like walk speed, but like I think there's something about sort of like the composition, sort of like the sort of the dynamics of this song. Like, those guitars just come in and they just don't let up, and that's like one of those things where you're like, all right, like, I could do this. I'm gonna keep going. You know, like, I'm gonna push beyond. Now that being said, like, I don't. That's my opinion, but maybe your power walk is different than my power walk. But yeah, I mean, I think this feels like a much more intense Woven Hand than I remember the last time we covered them on this show. But I mean, I'm into it. I mean, I'm also totally in love with this. I'm presumably the album artwork, which is like a quilt pattern. Very sick. I think I've always really enjoyed the sort of like the lore of Woven Hand, like really kind of exploring like sort of like Native American like sounds and stylings and stuff like that. And I think it's interesting that you brought up sort of like the most sort of like primary building blocks of like the song of like the human song making is like a sort of like a very percussive sound just over and over again. And I really like how that sort of, I like that you brought that up, because I feel like that sort of evolved in a way to then become sort of like dance music, or like more like electronic focused music, like trance or house or whatever. Like, I feel like that's sort of like in that same style, where I think it really does just sort of make you want to move. The constant bass line just evokes that emotion within you. And so, yeah, I think this is a very cool song. I think it definitely evokes an energy that makes me want to exert myself, but not too much.
Yeah, I think that there is, like, with this, I feel like when the song is over, it kind of resolves itself nicely. So even if you were kind of like in a little bit faster of a walk, or even like maybe a gallop, you could definitely find yourself coming to the end of it. So that's why I picked it. I thought it would be a wonderful song to have a nice, deep, spiritual power walk to.
Well, stylistically, I think it makes the most sense for me to go next. So that means we can talk about my song. This week I chose Gasoline by the Dead Weather. Gasoline is a track off of Dead Weather's album Sea of Cowards. It's their second album. Dead Weather, if you're not familiar, is a supergroup made up of Jack White from the White Stripes and Raconteurs, Alison Mosshart from The Kills, Little Jack Lawrence from the Greenhorns and the Raconteurs, and then Dean Fertitta from Queens of the Stone Age. And not only is this song kind of like typical of Dead Weather in that it has the dueling vocals of Jack White and Alison Mosshart, but it has the kind of like unique rhythm section approach that I think is most fun about this band. Like, hearing Jack Lawrence play bass and Jack White drum together, you can just feel the synergy between the two of them because they've been playing together for years and years. And I love the way the bass line and the drums like go back and forth with each other on this in this kind of syncopated pattern. It really feels like walking to me, like forcefully walking at a stiff pace. You're not running, but you're moving. And it has this kind of like ominous, like powerful sense to it that like you got places to be. You are like commanding presence on the sidewalk, like separating the masses, get out of my way, parting the sea of people as you stomp through the airport. Like, it's just powerful walking music. And it's come on a few times on shuffle when I'm like out and about doing things, and I'm like, oh man, I just kind of feel like a badass right now. And like, I just want to like storm through this crowd of people and like have them part before me. I don't know. Like, I keep using this like Moses like energy, but it feels that way.
Having a religious experience. That's okay.
Yeah. And you know, I think Allison is like at the height of her vocal prowess here, just like snarling at you. She's so vicious. This band is so cool.
Yeah, I feel like this song, like Sean's song, I think definitely evokes the sort of like energy, the sort of like the ferocity of movement. And so I think I think it lacks a bit of the sort of like the repetition within like a bass line to kind of have like a feeling of movement. But I feel like it's sort of like the excitement of like kind of like all the kind of cool stuff that's kind of happening. And I mean, like, you know, it's not exactly like marching music, but I don't think necessarily it has to be a song that's a requirement for a power walk. But I mean, like, this song also just is sick. You know, I don't feel like I've listened to The Dead Weather enough. It's always been like a project that I've been like, oh, this has all the components of things that I like. I mean, like that organ sound, incredible. So cool. You know, like, and of course it's got like, so Jack White is not playing guitar on this, right?
Correct. The lead guitar and organ are Dean Fertitta from Queens of the Stone Age.
But even then, it still kind of has that kind of Jack White kind of feel. So, but and you're right. Like the vocals are fierce. They're rough. They give you a real sort of real ego boost, a real power. So yeah. So I think it's less about setting the tempo and more of empowering you to move forward. So yeah, it's a good pick.
It's interesting that you brought up the dueling points because I hear it with the bass line, but I hear it more with the snare drum and the organ. So when you hear the drum line go da 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 da, and then you hear the organ go like kind of repeat that pattern but on the off beats, which I think is really cool. That's a level. That's like a. I never really listened to this song super close until that, and I really like that part because it's a little busy on the drums. There's not a lot of like percussion being played, but it's really busy. And especially in that one part where it's just basically her singing and the drums. What is it? Probably about like 1:45. And it still sounds full, and that's because you have like I'm not a big fan of just like lone drums all the time, but I think it works really nicely. Just out of curiosity,
the timbre on that snare is so interesting too.
Oh yeah, that thing is either a piccolo snare that's really tiny, or that head is cranked on that drum. I'm gonna go with piccolo probably, but I like it. It stands out, especially against an organ that's a little shrill. So, or it's big. It might be a big drum. I feel like in the later part, I'm like hearing a different drum now, which wouldn't surprise me because I feel like Jack's drum set for that band was really unique. Yeah, he changed his drums. I'm listening to the beginning again. Yeah, he changed his drums. Okay, but my other point was when you hear this, do you hear like how are you counting it? Like, do you hear like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4? Because when I hear it, it almost seems a little bit slow to me because I hear the. I don't really hear that. Like, I don't hear the fast beats. It almost makes you think it's a little slow. Or you'd be like subdividing the hits with your right foot or something.
Yes, I'm subdividing the hits with the right foot.
Okay, so you're mathing it out.
Yeah, so it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Like,
okay,
there's a little bit of a swing. There's a little bit of a swing to this power walk.
You got like a swing. You're like bowing people on the moving sidewalk.
That's what I mean. It's powerful. God. It's powerful.
Yeah, because I was also thinking of that, like, because the rhythm's definitely a little more complex, and I wasn't sure how to bring that up because I definitely don't have that.
I think it's because when I'm running, I want like 4 on the floor when I'm running, but when I'm walking, I feel like you have a little more license to play with your cadence of steps a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I like this because now, like, instead of like in between, you're just like. The snare drum hit on like 2 and 4 is like Taylor dropping the hammer on some people that ain't moving out of the way.
Exactly.
He's like, I'm like cinemizing this in my head. So he like walks up to somebody, he like pushes them, and then as he like gets further down the sidewalk, he's like shoving children down, just like right and left. Like
let's not get
right.
too
Like, it looks like a boxing match a little bit. Right. Someone like they're like reading a paper, like walking to him, he just like stiff arms them off to the side, like walks them. Eventually, as he goes deeper in the airport, it becomes very benevolent. He's actually like getting people to go into the right places as he's walking because he's like omnipresent in the airport.
Yeah, it's like the end of Groundhog Day when Bill Murray knows everything that's going to happen and he's like pushing people out of the way of oncoming cars. Yeah. That's exactly the vibe.
It's about the swagger, the extra damage from
like, and I think that's how I'm gonna paint this music video, right? Like when you first see it, the camera angle makes you believe that Taylor's actually doing all these like really mean stuff, and then the second time around, you actually see that like, you know, he's actually like kicking a banana peel out of the way when it looks like from the first angle he's tripping somebody or something. Yeah, I like this. Oh man.
That seems like a video that Jack White would art direct. Or in tune with his aesthetic. All right, well, Tyler, that just leaves you. What do you have?
Yeah. All right, great. This week I chose Here on My Own by Swarty. So I first heard of Swarty from Porter Robinson's Second Sky Festival concert. They did it online this year for obvious reasons. And so I had a fun little experience sort of like being in like this little like virtual world that I got to control a little character in. And Swarty was one of the artists that I heard while I was kind of watching that. And so I was just sort of immediately captivated by sort of the softness of his work in general, but also of this song. And so I feel like the sort of electronic EDM sort of space is very brutal. It's very intense. Like we kind of, it's been like about a decade since we kind of got out of the Skrillex like dubstep era of dance music, and I feel like we've kind of settled to a little bit more of a softer direction at the very least. And I feel like Swarty has kind of taken that in, a little bit of a step further. In my Spotify Wrapped, my aura apparently was nurturing and happy, and I feel like this song gives me like that exact kind of vibe. And so what I'm thinking about is, so I feel like you guys both kind of chose like a very like aggressive, a relatively more aggressive song, and that's fine because you gotta exert yourself, and I feel like that really helps you kind of pump you up and get you in the mood. But like since I feel like I'm doing it a little bit more recreationally, kind of like as like a ritual almost. I kind of have a little bit more of like a Zen view about it, and so I sort of like was listening to songs like this keeps me moving, keeps me going forward. It gives me a sort of like like it'll maybe cause me to look at the sky, kind of look around me a little bit more and maybe not be so like tunnel visioned. I feel like I have really bad time about like, I feel like most of my day is very tunnely. Like I'm looking straight at the thing because I gotta keep myself focused. And so like, maybe this is a song that's a little bit more casual, maybe it makes me think a little more introspectively, gets me thinking about stuff. I like to use my walks to kind of work through my problems in a way. And so I just think this song is just so beautiful and simple, but it also just has this little bit of a beat that just kind of keeps you moving. There's definitely a little bit of a groove. Like I wouldn't say this is definitely not a run. There's no way I'm running to this. Like I'm listening to Parasite Eve by Bring Me the Horizon if I want to get running. But if I want to be taking full strides, more than a walk, I think Here on My Own is a good contender for that.
This is awesome. I am definitely going to check this artist out. It feels like kind of like a housed up Nujabes beat, which I enjoy. It's got those beautiful lush pianos, but then also a good like understated but still housey kick snare hi-hat pattern that kind of, like you said, drives you forward. That's where your feet hit the ground. And I think the pitch shifted vocal is handled well in a way that is like high and shrill, but not annoying. Because sometimes when you do that to a vocal, it can get just intolerable. But here, this source vocal has enough fluctuations in it that I think it works. And you also get a lot of low end in this synth bass that's in there that I feel like really balances that out nicely. I would definitely use this on like an outdoor walk or a hike or something. I think it would be awesome for that. Like you said, kind of just broadening your perspective a little bit, enjoying some nature, enjoying a nice day. Not necessarily the like power walking through a crowd scene that Sean and I have generated, but
yeah.
This is a different kind of getting some movement in, and I think it's really good for that.
Okay, so I'm actually watching the Sward performance right now at Porter Robinson's Secret Sky 2021. I did not expect to see that. Like, I didn't expect to see him, like, actually kind of, like, messing around with some guitars and, like, a little drum machine and a piano and stuff. And that totally changes. That's a game changer for me. Because this is really cool. Like, I thought the song was good, but this is really cool to see this and this performance. And I feel like I'm going to have to go back and watch, like, all 30 minutes of it here pretty soon because this is really neat.
He performs this song around the 5-minute mark. For those who are interested, we'll link it in the show notes.
I really like this. Yeah, I totally see this as a great walking song. I like that there's an electric element to it. Because at first when I heard it, I thought it was a little video gamey. And I try and keep my exercise music away from video gamey stuff because I feel like then it takes it to a weird place for me that it's like competitive. I don't know if I like to have like that way all the time. Or if it's not really, not all video game songs help me get help me stay in the right mindset, I guess I should say. Like, because sometimes if they're supposed to be in the background maybe, and I've just like trained myself to believe that. But this is really cool. Did you know about Swarty before you went to this festival?
It was a total surprise, which I think also adds to it, because I think that almost that entire day that I watched was full of really cool, unique, and different sort of artists that were all making really different like electronic music. So
yeah,
this is blown away.
No, this is really cool. I'm very impressed. Check this out a lot more. Is it all kind of mellow like this?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say it doesn't get much more. This doesn't do an incredible like heel turn. Like it's varied and all a little different, but it's more or less this kind of vibe. So, the next song you should check out of Swarty is the Gold Wine, I believe. Yeah, that's my other favorite song.
Yeah, just go listen to Swarty. That's gonna be like my comment here. Is just go listen to Swarty. You really like it. So with that, it's time for notable B-sides. You got them. We want to hear them. Help us power walk into the future. Soundtrack that.
I only had two. I had Another Dead Weather track, I Need Love Every Million Miles, and it was a little on the nose, but Walking at a Downtown Pace by Parquet Courts.
I had a few. Canon by Justice, Genesis by Justice. I think Justice is a great band to listen to when you're trying to walk at a pace.
I always forget about Justice.
Yeah, you gotta. I glad I at least B-sided it, because Justice, Audio Video Disco is not well received by the community, but I think it's a pretty good album. And then Only Honesty Matters and How Do You Make Me Feel by Bed, which is another incredible like sort of like electronic group of artists that make like that just like have like a one-off album that's like really cool. Repeat Beater by Mew. DeLorean Dynamite by Todd Derge. Winging that one. Battle Lines by Cara Cara Benito. And Default by Django Django.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny that Taylor said Parquet Courts because I was thinking about that today. And the reason was I didn't really know what I was picking until like later this evening. And I was at a bike race this morning and there was a guy. This was a particularly wild bike race. Yeah, like definitely lots of. Do you guys know what a bike race hand up is? Okay, it's basically like somebody's handing out something on the edge, like the edges of the track, wherever you're at, and like sometimes there'll be hand ups around. They're kind of rare in the beginning of the season, but this one there was like shots being handed up, like bacon hand ups, cookie hand ups, beer hand ups. This is all in like one race. It was amazing. I definitely capitalized on my fair share of drinks this morning, just riding my bike. I didn't stop. I was like, just put it on my mouth. Just put it in my mouth. Like, like those little Dixie cups. I just like bit on the bottom of it and just like tilted my head back like a duck. But so there was a drummer there, and he had like a PA system, so he was just kind of like playing the drum part along, and he was playing a Parquet Court song when the first time I came up the hill, which was kind of cool. And then when I came up the second time, he was playing Seven Nation Army. I don't remember what he was playing the other times, but I remember those two first songs because I wasn't like dying yet. So I was like, oh yeah, this is, I'll remember this. This is really cool. So that's why I thought probably Parquet Courts, because it was helping me this morning. And then Seven Nation Army, but I feel like that's already on here. Not that we need to add any more White Stripes or Jack White to this. So Jack Stripes, yeah.
That's his name, yeah. Him and Tim Apple have a good relationship. All right, well, Tyler, if people want to catch up to you, where can they do that?
Hey, everybody. You can find my design illustration work at rudepets.club. And as always, you can find me on socials as Rude Pets Club on Instagram and Twitter.
Sean, if people want to compliment your leg warmers, where can they do that?
You can find me on Instagram at TellySean.
And if you want to compare your gait to mine, you can find me on the socials at TC Olmstead. All of these songs will be in the official No Repeat podcast playlist. We'll be back next week for the first of our Best of the Year episodes here on No Repeat.